Hi, welcome back to this channel. That is, if this is not your first time, but if this is your first time, welcome. We are happy to have you here. Guys, a lot of things have happened, and something that recently caught my attention, and I said, you guys have to hear about it. Do you remember Evangelist Remilekun Amos, Omodafide? That's for those of us that are not Gen Zs, or maybe even if you are a Gen Z, you are not the late 2000s Gen Z. Evangelist Remilekun Amos was a very popular evangelist back in the 90s, and he was not a pastor. He was a minister, a ministerial, even if you want to put it at that. And he used to go for several ministrations. He's released several songs, and he released several songs and all of those things. However, in the year 2000, he suddenly disappeared. Okay, maybe disappear is not the word. He went missing, and nothing has been heard from him. No evidence, nothing has been turned in concerning his whereabouts since the year 2000. And I think it's safe to say that maybe this man is no longer in the world, because 2000 to 2026 is 26 years, right? And before he went missing, he was an elderly man. Do you understand? He wasn't like a young boy. He was a father of 5 who had been in the ministry for years. In fact, one of his sons, who is the one recalling this story, was about 14 years as at then. Do you understand? So if you look at it, and then the wife he left behind passed on in the year 2009. It's just a very sad situation for the Amos family. Now his son, whose name is Lekan Amos, but you might now know him as Lekan Remilekun Amos, because he took over, sort of took over his father's legacy, right? He decided to just keep it going. Although, according to him, there's been a prophecy on him over his life that, oh, don't worry, at the end of the day, you're still going to do music, even though you wanted to pursue some other things. You wanted to be a football player at some point, like a soccer player. He said he believed he had so much talent in footballing, and he just felt like there was no way he was going to be a football player and not make it, right? And then sometime he tried petty jobs and all of those things in school and stuff, but eventually he had to return to the calling on his life, which is music, carrying on his father's legacy. Interestingly, this man, that's Lekan Remilekun Amos, used to follow his father, Omodafide, that's Remilekun Amos, used to follow him to minister back in the day. That was before the father, went missing. He used to follow him back in the day. They go for ministration. He was a backup singer. Even at the age of 13, he was already doing all of these things in the ministry. Right. So it just seemed naturally okay that, after a while, when he said that we wanted to, follow up on the music situation, he went and followed his father's style of singing and just had a band and continued in that legacy. Now, this video basically is to talk about what has happened, or what happened to Remilekun Amos as a person, and the mystery surrounding his disappearance, because couple of years after he passed, there were rumors that, I mentioned earlier that there are no evidence, nothing to point towards what might have happened to this man while for him to have passed or to have been missing. Nobody knew what's up in 26 years, even though they've investigated severally. According to this man, every news that we might have heard since the year 2000 up to now concerning the man's disappearance, his father's disappearance, is just rumor. They are just rumors. They are baseless, stories flying around. Because one interesting thing here is, a couple of years after I passed, like I was saying, in the year 2003, it came to light that a particular well-known pastor, who I'm not going to understand now, that it was wait, let's join it together. Remilekun Amos was an evangelist. He used to sing. He was not a pastor, but people invite him to events, to programs, and all of those things, and his songs bless lives, right? So it was sort of like a revered minister, almost like a pastor, sort of, but he didn't pastor a church. Now, he was a member of a church, right? A Celestial Church, CNS Church. Now, 3 years after he went missing in 2003, there came the story that it was the pastor of his church that used him. And in Nigerian parlance, you know what we mean when we say that they use somebody now. That was the pastor of his church that took him and then used him to further grow his own church business. You understand? That was what the pastor did. And that story really made waves then. And a lot of persons believe that, oh, finally, this is a closure we needed to have concerning this man, Remilekun Amos. It was a pastor that used him, and it was a very thunderous story. But the son, Lekan Remilekun Amos, has now said that's not true. That's baseless. There was no evidence to suggest that his father was buried anywhere in the church premises and whatnot, according to the story that was going around, you understand. So he came to debunk the news and he said, that did not happen. That's not what happened. Everything is what? It's all BS. That's all BS, that did not happen. And then he also debunked so many other claims because people came. He said that Remilekun Amos's past, I mean, why am I saying passing? I just feel like it's safe to assume that he's passed, right? And there's something they say in this part of the world, especially the Yoruba, it's better to be dead than to be missing. Do you understand? At least being dead gives a closure. And this man even said that his children still ask him, oh, Daddy, tell us about Grandpa. His pictures are everywhere. You carry him everywhere in your heart, in your work, but we don't know who he is. People talk about him like he was a famous person, but we have no memory, no burial sites, nothing to remember him by. So tell us about your father. And he said that's such a deep hole for him, especially because his mother too has passed. Like I mentioned, his mother passed in the year 2009. And that's because that's like 9 years after this man's disappearance. And according to the son, he said it's because when the man passed, right, naturally people were sympathetic, people promised to help and all of those things. But of course, you can't help more than the owner of the child. And in the bid to also investigate the father's passing, they had spent so much money, they sold so much things. They were not rich. Although he was a popular person, he was just a popular man. He was a contented, popular man. He was not wealthy. He didn't amass wealth while he was, very much the family. That's Remilekun Amos. So when he disappeared, when he went missing, when he was declared missing, the family had to sell properties, had to let go of things in a bit to figure out where he was, investigation here and there. And also that some prophets even at that point came to say, oh, we know where, we've seen a vision. We can find him for you. We can do this. Don't worry, he's going to come home. So most of the prophecies they received in the years after his disappearance were geared towards, oh, he's alive, he's somewhere, he's being held against his will. And we are praying, bring this, bring that, to free him. Right, but that family finally just gave up. Like, people should just stop taking our money, extorting us. So by then, things were already far too gone. And so in the year 2009, because of the devastation and all of those things, the mother passed. That is the wife of Remilekun Amos. She passed. So it's just this man and his siblings. They are 5, 3 boys and 2 girls. That's how that was the siblings he grew up with in Lagos, Nigeria. All his life has been lived in Lagos, Nigeria. And of course, they are from the Ilaje area of Ondo State. But we are not here to talk about, the family history. We're here to talk about the things that has happened following, or that happened following Remilekun Amos's disappearance over 26 years ago, as told by the son. Now, how did he disappear? You know that in all of these things, we've not said it. Interesting, if you ask me. It was not the era of mobile phone. It was in the year 2000, November 4th to be precise. Apparently, this man took off from Lagos and he bid them farewell to say, I am going to Akure in Ondo State. I have a ministration there. I have been invited. I'll be gone for a couple of days and then I'll return to you, my family, in Lagos State. Understandable. That's not the first time he would go on a journey. That's not the first time they would invite him. And then he usually go alone. He goes alone. When he gets there, just meets people and then they make a band. Not like now that you have to go with your crew, they have to provide accommodation, they have to do all of those things. It was just an evangelist, right, doing his evangelistical work. Who's evangelistical now? Correct the English if I'm wrong. Thank you. Anyway, so he was headed to Akure, Ondo State, from Lagos State. One part that I still don't get is, did he get to Akure? I guess he never got to Akure. He never got to Akure because, according to Lekan Remilekun Amos, the speculation that they finally decided to just hold on to as a family is that day he was traveling, the hours that it was supposed to be on the road, like a particular road, the Lagos Ibadan express road, because there are some routes you take. You go from Lagos to Ibadan to Oshun, and then, you understand, find your way to Ondo State. That Lagos Ibadan express road, there was an inferno, a fire accident, a fire incident happened, and people lost their lives, vehicles got burnt and all that. So they chose to believe that, oh, maybe just per chance it was in that inferno, so it was a fire victim and he lost his life. There was no means to identify him. If somebody was burnt with the property, with everything they carried on them, no means of ID, nothing, and it's not the digital area, they can say, oh, maybe the teeth or something, let's check for DNA, let's match for this, let's match for that. They didn't have that then. Right, so the family just said they decided that, okay, maybe that's what happened. And a lot of persons actually hold on up till now to that belief that, oh, Remilekun Amos passed, unfortunately, on the 4th of November 2000 in a fire accident. The inferno that happened on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on that day claimed the life of Remilekun Amos, according to some persons. And so for Lekan Remilekun Amos, Mr. Lekan, Evangelist Lekan, why did I say Mr. Evangelist Lekan? Because he's also an evangelist like his father, Evangelist Lekan Remilekun Amos. Even though that's some speculations and things that some persons chose to believe, he himself cannot bring himself to believe that. He's still holding on hope that maybe someday, somehow, his father will return home. I mean, how wonderful would that be? You should just come back and say, oh, sorry, guys, I didn't mean to be gone. Something happened. Aliens came, apocalypse, this one and that one. Or I was taken by the angels and I was kept in a place and I was preserved and I'm back. Maybe. I doubt that's going to happen, but, he's still holding on up, and except you're in his shoes, you can't really tell him how to grieve or how to deal with his father's disappearance, something that happened when he was a child. And some other crazy thing that happened to him and in the family is that the mother passed, like I mentioned, in 2009. But the burial ceremony held the same day he, Lekan Remilekun Amos, was also supposed to matriculate into high school. So it was into university rather. So it was his matriculation day in the university that he also buried his mother. Such a sad situation to find yourself in at such a tender age, and to have had to fend for yourself and all of those things in between, which is why I said when he was in school he did delve into petty trading and doing some little things in order to make money and make ends meet. Anyways, guys, that's the story of Evangelist Remilekun Amos, and him being missing. If this interests you, or you have some details that maybe I did not get to find out and all of those things, you can let us know in the comment section. If you are of the school of thought that some of the stories and rumors that were spread, maybe you feel like there's some iota of truth in it, you can of course also put that in the comment section. I'll be waiting for you there. Thank you so much for watching this one. I'm going to see you in the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Ciao.